All right, I'm working on what I hope is my final checklist before we fire this thing up. Got some oil in the car, got some coolant in the car. I'm gonna have to get fuel. I just connected the alternator, so let's check that off. And I disconnected it for various reasons. Had some issues with the front of the engine leaking, so I had to take some things apart. Anyways, got it fixed. So now this is where we're at. I just connected the alternator. I'm gonna go ahead and connect the ECU, and I'm gonna set up that Bluetooth and connect to it with my phone. All right, so as I said, I put coolant in, I put oil in, I put in the Royal Purple break-in oil. It was a good price, it got good reviews, so I'm gonna use that to break in the engine. And I just put some water with a mix of Prestone coolant. So now I need to, actually I already hooked up that one wire on the back of the alternator, so that's done. Now I need to hook up the connectors for the ECU and the that's the ones for the ECU there. So that's those two, one to the negative, one to the positive. So you can see I've already routed those. And then the other ones are the let me talk here. The fuel pump. So I gotta find those wherever I routed those into, and hook the fuel pump up as well. So I'll look for that right now, and then I'll video the connections here. All right, this is why I create checklists, because I got to remind myself what I did. So I was just double checking here. This is the fuel pump here. So I went ahead and routed that to the fuse panel here, but before the fuse. So that should be good because we have a fuse on it, a circuit breaker on it inside the cabin, if you remember. And then I ran the negative here to the terminal, so that's already ran. So all I'm gonna have to run to the side terminals is the ECU. Everything else should be hooked up. So I'm gonna hook those up, plug in the negative battery terminal, and then we'll run some tests. Ooh, I just saw something that I need to add to my checklist. This is the air temp right here. So I need to drill a hole into that guy and get that into the air cleaner. Okay, I got those ECU connections into those side terminals there. Plugged in the negative battery terminal. Everything else should be plugged in. Now I'm gonna try and get that Bluetooth hooked up on the ECU. So I was looking at the bottom of this air cleaner, and it looks like it's got a couple spots for a punch out to put the sensor on there. So I'm gonna punch out one of those and see if I can't get it to work. All right, don't mind the Christmas music. Neighbors are doing yard decorations. Got that in there. That punch out was not much of a punch out. I ended up having to drill it out. It was a pain in the ass. So it's a mess. I had to deburr the shit out of it and put the grommet in there, but it all fit. So there it is. I'm gonna put that on there, and that should be the last connection for the ECU. All right, and I ended up being a bit of a tight squeeze. I didn't realize on this side you have the throttle position sensor and the I forget what that other sensor is on this side, but the front one I believe is the throttle position. Oh, the map sensor's on the front, and the throttle position's on the side there. I might be able to flip this map sensor. I'm gonna take a look at that and see if I can, because it is a bit of a tight squeeze right there. Can't really see it, but there you go. It's kind of right in between those two. It's in there, so I might just leave it just to get it started, and then I'm not planning on using this air filter long term anyways, because it doesn't let the hood shut.
All right, so the first thing you got to do for the Edelbrock eTuner is to download the program. So this is just me going on the App Store and then downloading eTuner 4. So you can see it requires a sign in or whatever. So it doesn't cost anything to download the app though. And then once you have it downloaded, open the app. It does always open like sideways on that. So there, you'll see later in here, I'll hold my phone sideways, so it'll be a little bit better. But that's just the initial startup screen. And then this is what it looks like from the setup wizard. So from the initial startup screen, you can go to the setup wizard, and then you're gonna follow the settings on here. So in this case, I'm gonna select my Ford 351 Windsor firing order. And then you set your cubic inches. So in my case, it's a 408. So lots of clicks here. Starts at a 302. So we're gonna go up to 408 here, and then once you get past this part, it's gonna ask you about the camshaft. So we'll get there in just a second here. Okay, so you have the option of stock, mild, or race cam. Mine's actually a mild 210 degrees on mine. I didn't know that at this point, so you'll see I kind of bounce back and forth and look at some different things. So I was just hitting the back button on there, and then so you can actually see, you can go back and forth during the setup wizard. The car hasn't started at this point or anything. It's just key on, and you do the configurations here. Click next, and then I later on selected the mild cam after I looked it up. I wasn't sure if mine was right, because I was pretty close to stock. Like I said, I'm at 210, and so very close. So at any rate, select your fuel pressure options. There is another option on this. After I selected the 210, it had an option for 56, I believe, and so that's what I ended up using on that one. And then it'll actually select the if you click next, the fuel injector size. My only option was the 35 pounds, so I just click next on that. And now it's uploading the map to the ECU itself. So you just give it a few seconds to upload. Once that hits 100%, it's going to tell me to power cycle the key. You can see it right here. Once the map is loaded, please power cycle ignition key off. It tells you that on a pop-up window right here as well. So I just click OK on that. And then power cycle the key to the off position for 10 seconds. And while it's off, you'll see up here in the top right next to the Edelbrock with the engine, it'll actually go to a searching, there you go. So it's searching for the ECU now because it's off. So that's when you know it's pretty much reset at that point. You can turn the key back on and it'll turn back to a green check mark. And that means you're connected to the ECU. So now I'm connected, and I click next to prepare to start the engine. And now we go to the engine starting. Go ahead and fire it up, hopefully. Make sure you take it out of gear. Okay, try it again. Not quite enough juice, I don't know. All right, let's try it one more time just to see. I think I need to charge the battery. Okay, and give it a shot.
Ready? Wah, wah, wah.
Oh, save, Jay.
side. That side. Pull out and then I'll come in. Is that you?
Got speedometer, yeah, that's fine. Got speedometer. Oh, it's so rad. Okay, now that I've gotten it fired up and all the excitement's kind of passed, I want to talk about all the things that are wrong now that I found after firing it up. The first thing I noticed was that the fuel tank is leaking. Let's see if I can get a video of that. And it's just like seeping from the intake right there, or where the fuel pump is. So I'm gonna have to probably swap that gasket because it's just a slow little seep, like I said. What else? We got the other thing that I noticed is that I have oil leaks in the front. You can see it's hard to tell, but there's some oil kind of puddled up right there. You can see it better right there. And then there's a little bit in the back. And what it looks like is it's coming from the intake. So what I need to do is pull this intake off and reseal the front and back with the silicone gasket. I'm thinking I just didn't get that silicone gasket thick enough, because that's the only place that seems to be leaking is from the front and back of that. Can't really see the back, I would imagine, but I just saw some oil back on the transmission when I was under it and things. But the big thing I fought with was, and you notice in some of the, if you watched, all of it, the failed start videos, the engine was really just like, sound like the battery was dead or the starter was just struggling. And what I found was that my timing had gotten off on the marker. And so what happened is I was trying to time it for 12 degrees before top dead center. And so I was doing that, but it was advancing the timing way too much. And so it caused the starter to struggle to the point where it actually burned up a starter, and I had to swap it out. So that's something I had never really experienced before, was that your timing is so advanced that this engine's fighting against the starter so much that it actually burns up the starter. So we swapped that out. I got the timing marks fixed on there. I don't have them on the right setting right now because the engine's been run again. But then I got the timing set with the timing light, 12 degrees before top dead center. Got the air fuel ratio set in the app, and then everything just runs great, man. I can sit in there and just turn the key and it fires right up. So those are the things that I've run into that are wrong with it from the engine standpoint. And the other thing that I'm running into is I'm having a really hard time. Let's get in here. Getting the car into gear. So it feels like it's going into gear there, but there you have to actually, let me do that again. So now I'm in neutral, and it went into gear that time, but it just was not going into gear, and I was having a really hard time getting it to shift. You can see I can't get into fifth right now or reverse. So it's just sometimes in certain gears. So I can get into first, second right now, but fourth was hard just now, and that's not going at all to fifth or reverse. So it's really frustrating when I was trying to get into first at a stop sign and I couldn't go anywhere. So that was frustrating as well. So I think I might have a little bit of air in my clutch, so I'm going to work with my wife and see if we can't get that out of there. So I think that's what's going on with that. So it's just a number of things that have gone wrong that I need to work on. And you know, if I had got this perfect, I would have been more shocked than the fact that I had to run into that I ran into these issues. So I'm gonna work through these issues, and I'll update as I get them fixed.